As your organization scales, obviously your data volumes are going to scale with it. Making sure you have the right controls around it ensure you are operating in a secure, compliant, and efficient way as a business. Data authorization is putting those controls around your data sets to make sure that you control not actually who can access data itself, but down to an individual field, attribute, or record inside of your data systems. When you really look at what's going on inside of a business, you're storing data in some sort of data store, and you want to make sure that users, when they interact with that data, can actually be allowed to access it. And this really kind of falls into three main reasons why you want to do it. First off is security. Most obvious ones, you want to make sure you're limiting data access to only those users that can access a particular data set, and not just whether they can access the data set, but access the individual records or fields within inside of it. Imagine like an HR system. You don't want to give everyone access to all the records inside of the HR system. You want to make sure that the employee information is only exposed to maybe the employer directly or the manager of that employer, rather than opening up the entire data set to anyone that wants to access it. If you're working in a regulated industry, finance, healthcare, etc., having these strong controls in place is a must. There are legal requirements you must meet to ensure that your systems are controlling access to data in a way that is appropriate for the business and the use case for that data. And finally, from a user experience and just purely business agility perspective, having good authorization controls around data sets themselves is going to enable you to really deliver the interfaces and workflows and tools to your users, to your customers, in a way that makes sense in terms of what data they're accessing, but also not blocking further development or further usage, and by giving you a flexible approach to granting access to data sources and data sets or records within those. When it comes to implementing data authorization, there's really a few ways you can do it. You can go and hard code some logic inside of your application code, which was great for getting started simply, but as things scale, as things grow, that code is going to get quite complicated, maybe a bit unmanageable. So taking a policy-based access control approach, using a policy decision point as an externalized authorization solution to enable you to define your access controls as policy, which can be versioned and tested and signed off by your compliance and security teams, and then using that inside of the application to check what conditions or what access that the particular user should have at the moment they're requesting it inside of the system. In the most basic record case where you have a user trying to access a single record, it's as simple as saying, can this user do this particular action on this particular record? You send a request from your application code to a policy decision point. It evaluates your policies, comes up with a decision, and simply returns an allow or deny. But the more fine-grained approach, when you want to send a list of records or a list of resources someone can access, is you actually need to get back not an allow or deny, but you need to get back a set of conditions for you to apply to your data fetching layer. So think of it like a SQL where clause. Got this user trying to access this type of record, what conditions can be put in place for their access to be allowed? And that is going to be fully dynamic based on your policies, which then can be converted into whatever filter or data store logic is available to you inside of your system. The final part is now you've got a system that can either make a decision or give you the conditions to enforce authorization is the audit trail. So when you're giving access to data, particularly if it's sensitive data, if you're in one of those regulated industries, you want to make sure you have an audit log. At this time, this user tried to do this particular action on this particular data set or this particular record, and it was either allowed or denied by this particular policy. By taking a policy-based approach, by taking a policy decision point solution and running it inside of your environment, you get that audit log. Regardless of where in your application stack that a user is accessing the data, you get that consistent log stream of decisions made by your application architecture, which enables you to meet all those compliance and regulatory needs and give you confidence that your system is behaving as it should. So at its core, data authorization is about enforcing right access at the right time. It really complements the authentication piece, which is making sure someone is who they say they are. Now, what can they do inside of the system? Adopting these kind of systems is now coming best practice and is a kind of a necessity inside of organizations. And Cerbos is a solution that can do that in a way that you can just drop in a solution rather than spending weeks, months, days, years building an authorization solution.